John, are you able to see my screen?
I am, and
Great.
I'm ready to start. The time is now 5:32 p.m. I am calling to order the South End Landmark District Commission August 4th, 2026 public hearing. Commissioners present are Commissioner Catherine Hunt, Commissioner John Freeman, Commissioner Peter Sanborn, and myself, John Amadeo. Did anybody else pop in that I didn't see?
Nope.
If not, I'll carry on. Today, the Commission will be holding a public hearing to review applications. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the South End Landmark District Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All further conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has adjourned. Are there any media or elected officials currently present? Sarah, do you know if we have anybody?
I do not see, I don't
If
see any
so,
hands raised.
yeah. If so, please raise your hand using the Zoom meeting platform and state your name, title, and affiliation. If there are no hands raised, I'll proceed. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. We will repeat these instructions throughout the hearing. And the agenda will be with begin with the ratification of the July 7th meeting minutes, followed by violations. I believe we've got one on the agenda. Then design review, followed by administrative review, and then staff updates prior to adjournment. So let's start with the ratification of the July 7th, 2026 meeting minutes. Were there any comments on the meeting minutes by any commissioners? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of July 7th.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. We'll go for a vote. Is it everyone voting, Jackie?
Yes.
Okay. So Peter,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Great. Now we'll go to violations. And the one on the agenda is 552 Columbus Avenue. The work was to install a mechanical unit at the front and encase with a wooden box to match existing storefront.
Great. And before, while I'm reading staff comments, if the applicant can raise their hand so we can unmute them. And while they're doing that, the staff recommendation is denial without prejudice because as stated in the standards and criteria, mechanical equipment such as compressor units should not be visible from any public way within the district. And I see that the applicant has raised their hand, so I'm going to unmute them. And then if you could state your name and record.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioner Walid Samaha.
Great. And then we have your presentation right here, in addition to the existing conditions of the storefront currently. So this was your presentation. And then if you can just begin to sort of present what you submitted to us, that would be great. Thanks.
Walid?
Sorry, I was muted and I couldn't unmute. Hi, good afternoon. As you can see in the presentation, yes, we did put the mechanical unit out there. First of all, I was unaware of violation. I don't know where it went or where it received, so I do apologize if it seemed that I did not address the violation. I was only informed of violation when I submitted my application. So that is just, I want to be clear that it wasn't me ignoring a violation or your recommendations. I don't know where it went or who received it. In regards to this unit, this is an office space. As you can see, This office space is completely landlocked, has no windows, no access to the back, no access to the roof. The line sets are much further than what would work for a line set for a mechanical unit. So we are proposing putting this type of custom build out with almost like a little bit of a plant encasing to help alleviate the view of it. This is a pretty costly endeavor, but as you can see right now, the unit has no windows. So we brought in 3 to 5 HVAC companies to look at this. The unit has no heating, no air conditioning, no ventilation, no air circulation, no fans. None of these windows open. We explored in window units, but that only grants access to one floor and not the other 2 floors. This is a split level. It has 3 units. So I don't know what other option there is. I am locked to the left, to the right with brownstones, and behind me is also living units. We've explored running lines to the back, but they come into someone's balcony, and they also hit that 100-foot distance from the unit. So I'm sort of first apologetic that I didn't know about the violation, but don't know. I'm not a builder. I'm not a contractor. I've contacted experts. I just don't know what options are present. People have told me that this is the only way. You guys are the experts. So I'm sort of here to work with you and understand what I can do, because as it stands, if that's not an option, I have to find an option. Otherwise, we're without heat, air condition, and air circulation. So I'm open to any suggestions and anything you've seen from your experience, doing this. I would love to hear what options you can recommend or paths you can point me towards that I can rectify this.
Okay. Walid, if that is all you have to present to us, we'll have commissioners ask questions first, and then once we've asked our questions, we will comment on your application, and then we will take public comment before we take a vote. So we'll make a motion after we comment, and then we'll ask for public comment on the motion, and then we will vote after that. So Peter, do you have any questions?
Yes. I find it a little difficult to frame questions. Walid, can you explain the layout more in what floors you're occupying? Do you occupy the entire depth of the building, just the front of the building? Sort of hard to react to your proposal without.
It looks like there's a site plan in the center of this slide. Jackie, can you zoom into that if you're the driver?
Yeah, great question,
Yes,
Peter.
let me do that.
So, Peter, to answer your question, what you're seeing is the entrance to the unit. It is a loft unit, and then there's a basement component to it. Behind me is a separate apartment with access from the left side of the building. So behind me is probably, I occupy maybe the first 15 feet of the unit. Behind me, there's a full-blown apartment that goes to the back with a balcony, and that continues up the 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor. To my left is a brownstone residential. To my right is also a brownstone. So I'm pretty much a small rectangle commercial space in between 3 livable units or buildings are all around me.
So there looks like there's a window that's papered there.
Yes, sir.
And is the entrance to the apartments that you referred to the left of that?
Correct, sir.
You can see part of the doorway.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so you occupy the street level and the level below?
Correct. It's so funny.
Okay, that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was looking at the diagram in the text and not thinking that nobody else was speaking. John, questions?
Is the buildings, is this a party wall building where the walls are touching on either side?
Yes, sir.
So your basement only faces the front as well?
Yes.
That's my only question.
Okay,
And it's Mr. Freeman, it's a full concrete basement underground.
okay. Catherine, questions?
Yes, thanks, John. I guess it's partly to do with what Peter was asking. I guess I don't understand how, has your space been like this for a long time, separate from the rest of the building? I don't understand how it couldn't have any heat or air conditioning except, available to that spot.
Yes, ma'am. It's been like that. Also, it has no gas access. We've explored gas access. It's had no heating or AC. It also maybe that is the reason why it was vacant for such a long period of time.
Could be.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
so, I've got a question. What is that, in this photograph that's on the screen, above the door to your office space that's slightly open, there's a gray rectangle with a white frame. What is that?
That is a window, a floor window for the loft that only opens inward 3 inches for safety reasons and code.
Okay,
So that wouldn't be able to have a unit in there because it doesn't open. Secondly, it doesn't provide access to the main floor or the basement.
I don't know what you mean by loft. What do you
So-
mean by
so-
loft? Is
so
that part
this
of your
unit-
unit?
Yes, this unit, if you zoom in, there's a loft space that goes to upstairs where you see that white window above 552. You see where that number is? That is the second floor loft.
It's right above the door. Is the
Yeah, it goes
ceiling
all-
immediately above the door?
Correct. It goes all the way across. There's a full loft with a spiral staircase leading up to it.
So the window, I'm confused, the window to the left of that door goes above that small rectangle window. So does that window cover both your office and the loft?
Yes, the loft is part of our office. You see
Okay.
you see this woodwork above it? That is a metal beam and brickwork, and up behind that is the flooring and the loft.
Okay, so the office has a loft and the ground floor and the basement.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you took this space knowing it didn't have any heat or air conditioning?
No, I didn't know. I didn't realize it.
Okay. Did you know that you're in a landmark district?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, why didn't you know it? Your
I-
lease should have that information on it.
I don't have an answer for that. It's my first property I buy. I didn't know, lesson learned.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have any further questions. So,
John, I have a couple of further ones then.
yeah, go ahead, Peter.
So the wooden storefront we have here, is that a false front or is the roof right near the top edge of the wooden section?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
I didn't either.
There's something that's sometimes called a false front where the front elevation projects up above the actual roof level.
Oh no, that is my roof right there. Where you see the black, where the mouse is, that is the roof of the
Okay.
loft.
Okay,
And right where you put your mouse right now, there's a steel beam, and then it is structural brick all the way.
So can you explain when the chairman was asking you about that rectangular window above the door?
Yep.
Can you explain more what the code issue is there?
So you see where that 552 is, where the mouse is?
Yep.
If you make a straight line across, that is the floor to the second unit. Correct. So that window above the door is on the floor, and it only opens inward 2 inches.
Well, you said second unit, but you said it's a loft that's part of the office space.
Second floor, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
So would it be possible to modify that window opening so that a mechanical unit was installed in the interior and that there is some sort of a grill treatment where that window is now for either exhaust or intake?
No, because there'd be no way for me to run. We explored that. There's no way for me to run ducts to the other floors or air conditioning, because that is the entrance, both emergency and primary entrance to the building, right under that window.
Hmm. I somehow think where there's a will, there's a way.
You know what? That's what my guy told me when I put that outside, and it didn't work out that way.
No. And Frank, well, anyway, I'll get to it when I get to my comments, but anything else, Peter?
I could hang it outside up above the door.
Yeah,
no.
that won't be any better.
Have you
Peter-
considered not having a combination? So this is a heat pump, I'm assuming that's something
Yes,
like
it's
a
it's
split
heat.
system you're putting in there?
Yeah, heat and cold air. And also, sorry, to John's point, when we explored putting it in that window, you know, with the will, with the way, there's a way, we have to have air intake coming in and air to come out of the building. So the only way would be to hang it on the exterior of the storefront or up top. We explored putting it up top. It covers the window to the second floor above us on the roof.
Okay, so have you thought of having separate heat and air conditioning devices, such as electric baseboard for heat and a different solution for air conditioning?
We have explored that, but there still has to be ventilation or a way to access fresh air into the unit.
Open the windows.
The windows don't open.
Create openable windows.
I- The condo is so, that's a, I mean, I could, I don't know the economics of changing that window in that storefront. I would have to go back.
It'll be cheaper than anything else we're going to recommend.
Well, I'd like to see the recommendations because I'd love to see what the options are, because it's a significant cost to change that storefront and that window in the 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
John, real quick, do we know what's going in here? Walid, what is this space going to be used for?
It's office space,
Office, like,
my office space for my companies.
so limited hours during the day, correct?
No, we're there about 12 to 15 hours.
Uh-huh, okay. Well, to the other commissioners,
so-
are we supposed to solve the problem?
We can make recommendations, but there's also, no, we're not responsible for solving the problem. The applicant is. But, you know, we can make recommendations to help the applicant.
I
Essentially.
realized we try to be helpful, but but
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what are the two rectangles below the large window?
They're fixed windows on the floor again.
Okay, so in theory, at least, those windows could be replaced with some grill for,
No, because the unit would still have to be closer to the outside to be able to pull in fresh air and exhaust that vented air from inside. I could put it there if it's fine. I mean, we can move it there. I just don't know if that's
I'm talking about putting the unit on the inside and having the air
I
intake
don't
and
know if
exhausting.
that's possible to put a air conditioned unit inside of a car box.
You have a Greenwich door right there.
And also right behind that window to your left is the second emergency exit door that leads to the left, that left door.
Okay.
Does the floor of the loft go all the way to the front
Yes, it does.
there? Okay.
So the floor cuts across that picture window.
Correct. Right between those two lights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Peter, did you have, I assumed your questions were kind of rolling into comments while you have the floor. Do you have any further comments?
My further comment is that every option needs to be explored for alternate solutions to what's being proposed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. John, I'm going to ask you if you have any comments.
Yes.
And I'm particularly interested, John, in hearing from you about even not that we would approve this, and we probably wouldn't, but just can you comment at all on the feasibility of boxing in an AC unit, including boxing it in on the top in order to have it serve as a planter? Is that even feasible?
The way it's boxed in this picture would invalidate the warranty. You need more space around it than that, and venting. Peter's right. It isn't our job to solve this. In fact, we're not supposed to solve this, but I have seen it solved in a particular way. I'm sorry, somebody talking?
yeah, excuse me, John, could someone on the call please mute their audio because we're getting interference we can't hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just distracting, sorry. The way it was done, and this depends on, I assume you already own this equipment. The way it was done is they made an interior space that was insulated and boxed around the unit because the unit doesn't know where it is. And they did it in a basement and then used mechanical power fan to actually run air through this space from outside. So I could imagine seeing this being done, with high velocity ducts, which are only about 6 inches from the roof, a flush mount on the roof. You'd have to keep it clear of snow. But I think it's a possible way to solve this. I don't know what the manufacturer would think about that, but as long as you maintain the clearances, it could work. I also don't know if you have space for that, but that's the only way I can imagine this working.
Mr. Freeman, sorry to interrupt. We have looked at that option. I also want to clarify that part of the basement is under the city's sidewalk.
That's a big basement.
Yeah, the whole unit's about 900 square feet. So you have about 300 in the basement, 200 on each other floor.
So that's still, so maybe you do have the space to do it.
I mean, if the city lets me come up the sidewalk, I think that would be a great solution.
Well, the way it was
Yeah.
done, when I saw it done, it was vented and the space was mechanically vented to allow the exchange of heat. And they had enough free airflow around the unit that it could then do its job and provide the coolant or the heating to the the rest of the space. I didn't do it myself. I didn't, but I've seen it. I saw it done, and it worked.
That's very helpful. Can you tell me where so I can use that as a reference to talk to our team?
I probably shouldn't. Sorry.
Okay.
But the I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Was it all contained within the building,
It
John?
was all within the building. And it was it was a situation very similar to this. It wasn't in the south end. But what I was going to say is that we, in a very special case, did allow a kind of vent for, John, do you remember the restaurant? What was it called? Do you know what I'm going to say? It's the low.
I remember the restaurant Stella.
Stella. And they did a panel system that looks like something you could do under your window. That had it was a recessed panel with a raised panel up front, and they were able to get enough free area around the perimeter of the panel to make their mechanical work. I don't again know the calculations. Stella is gone. But it looked so good that we allowed it to be, and it was on the front, it was on the entrance of the building, visible from the street. The only problem they had with it is people would sit in front of it because they didn't know that it was a vent.
But they wouldn't have that problem here because there's a fenced-in garden.
Right. So that's the only way I can imagine solving this. I have seen it solved and work in one place. But it isn't our job, and we're not supposed to tell you because if somebody told you to do something that didn't work, so you have to explore it and bring it back to us. But we can't allow this on the outside. This is very clearly against the regulations in the district, even with your nice box around it.
Right. So thank you, John. And my comments would be to support what's been said by other commissioners, and also to say that we likely would not approve, in fact, I know we would not approve any kind of venting coming up through the sidewalk or the garden. So this has to be, for your purposes, it'll need to be solved inside the building. So I am ready to take a motion.
Move to deny.
Go ahead.
I move to deny the application without prejudice.
Okay. We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Peter, you.
Oh,
Okay,
Peter, you can second it.
I think he was trying to second, but he was muted. Right,
That's
Peter?
fine.
Okay.
I'll second.
Great. So we're now going to ask for public comment. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. And Sarah, do we have anyone raising their hands, or did we get any written comment emailed?
Hi, John. This is Rachel. I'm not seeing any raised hands, but we did receive written comments. So I'm going to go ahead and read it.
Oh, please.
From the South End Historical Society. Dear South End Landmarks Commissioners, I'm writing on behalf of the South End Historical Society in regards to the above referenced application to resolve the violation at 552 Columbus Avenue by installing a mechanical unit at the front of the building and encasing it in a wooden box to match the existing storefront. The proposed solution contradicts previous commissioner comments regarding what is appropriate in the district, violates the district's guidelines, and should not be approved. At previous commission meetings, applicants that have proposed using landscaping or other objects to screen violations or unapprovable work have been denied. The commissioners have pointed out that these types of solutions are not permanent, but the underlying work or violation is. Just like there is no guarantee that landscaping remains forever, there is no guarantee that the proposed enclosure will be maintained indefinitely. Not only would approving the application set a precedence of allowing temporary solutions, the proposed work violates the district's guidelines. The guidelines are clear that the only appropriate place for this type of equipment is either on the roof of the building, at the rear of the building, or in a non-visible location. And it specifically says that front yard placement is not appropriate. We encourage you to not approve the proposed solution for the violation at 552 Columbus Avenue. The impact of approving the work sets a dangerous precedent, and the work clearly violates the district's guidelines. Sincerely, Michael Liebman, President.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think we've heard what we need to hear, and we'll go to a vote now. So Peter,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Walid, moving forward, I recommend you work with staff to develop your solutions, and if there's a solution that needs to come back to us, staff will let you know.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to the next application now. Well, we'll begin with proper design review, and we'll start with the first application. And that is 56 Rutland Square. The proposed work is to replace existing fence at the front garden with a new fence. And if the applicant is here when the presentation is brought up on the screen and you're unmuted, please give us your full name before you start to present.
Yep, and while the applicant is raising their hand, staff recommends approval is submitted. We do not have photo evidence of the historic fence. The current submitted plans for the fence design replicate a historic fence from the Lawler catalog. And then we additionally do have images from courtesy of South End Historical Society from the 1970s. It does not show any fence. And then the other image, in which I am currently trying to zoom in on, but it's not allowing me to, is from 1941, in which I can pull up shortly, but does also not have any evidence of an existing fence.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes.
I wonder if it was a function of the war effort where cast iron was donated to the war effort to help with making military equipment. We lost a lot of cast iron fences and ornamental fences in the South End for that reason. So is the applicant here? Have they raised their hand?
I don't see any raised hands. Maybe let's give it one more minute to see if they're having technical difficulties while I try to find a better image of the historic image I have. And if no one raises their hand in the meantime, then we can just move on to the next one, and Rachel and I will contact the applicant.
And say,
Okay.
Jackie, I can reach out to the applicant.
Well,
Great.
Rachel, this image that's up now, there appears to be a fence there.
Didn't quite see one down here, Peter.
Can you zoom in on that?
Yeah. If it works. No.
I can't imagine why they want to replace that fence.
That's the most I could zoom in, but I was reading it as more so vegetation.
Yeah, it looks like vegetation. And then
And
there's
then
grill work on the windows.
on my screen, on the right-hand side, this is 56 Rutland. And I know it's a little blurry, so the left-hand side is the adjacent property. And then this right here is the yard of 56 Rutland, which I was reading it more so as just
hedge.
vegetation as well. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a hedge. It's interesting because every other address along that whole block has a fence.
Yeah.
Well, the one to the left of it doesn't look original, though. It just looks like a steel picket fence.
Well, there's all sorts of different fences all along there, John. Yeah,
Right, but of the period, it wouldn't have been typical to just put in a lightweight steel picket fence like that.
right.
There would have been a cast iron fence that would have had more a robust design. So,
On
Yeah.
Google, there's a fence.
So
Am I
there is an
looking at the-
existing fence right now.
What does that look like?
Yep, and I could show it really quickly while hopefully the applicant comes online,
Oh,
but
that's it. Okay, to be removed. Got it.
yep. But I guess for time's sake, let's just move on to the next application. Hopefully the applicant for this project will be able to make it. But let's just move on to the next one.
we only have a couple others on design review, and we can always make an announcement when we're done with those to see if they've arrived.
It's Guy Grassi, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
He's usually here. Well,
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to the next application. We can come back to Guy Grassi after these. 10 Bradford Street, replacement of replacement of exterior entry door. And there are additional items that have been moved to administrative review.
Angela, if you can state your name and affiliation for the record.
And
Angela Robinson, representative of Infinity Replacement.
Okay, great.
Right.
And then I will read the staff comment. So staff recommends now without prejudice regarding the proposed door replacement. The proposed door is Provia fiberglass with wood skin. The standards and criteria state replacement doors shall match the original in material and in design, including proportion, number of leaves, placement within the door frame, and general arrangement of panels. Regarding the transom, okay, that's the staff comment. The rest have been moved to administrative review.
okay, great. Thank you, Jackie. So, yeah. Angela, feel free to begin presenting.
Sure. And first, I'd like to thank the commission's time, and in particular, Ms. Erickson. She's been terrific working with us. The windows, the transom, and then the double hung insert in windows. We are moved to the administrative review as we moved from to a wood construction, and again, thank her for that time. The proposed door is of a fiberglass construction. Can we move to the next slide? Thank you. Yes, I just wanted you to see the existing door is the blue door. This particular building is from 1984, 1986. I believe it is wood construction. Our proposal was for a fiberglass construction door. We do now understand that that is not within your guidelines. If you want to advance forward, you can see the spec sheet for the proposed door. There it is. Thank you. Would be black. I believe the homeowner is also on this this meeting as well. I'm not sure if that would be Matt Kelly, if he has anything he would like to add, but it is understood that it needs to be of wood construction with the panel arrangement as existing.
Okay. Is that the end of your presentation, Angela?
Well, it is, since my windows got moved to the administrative review. So I will hold out until then if there is any additional comment you need from me.
Okay, so we're going to have commissioners ask questions first, and then following that, we'll have comments from commissioners, and we'll make a motion. And before we vote on the motion, we'll ask for public comment. So, Catherine, do you have any questions?
No, but quickly, Angela or Jackie or Rachel, whoever's running this, could you go back to the existing photo just for a sec? Thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot. I was out there and I took a photo and I'm looking at my photo and I'm seeing reflections in the transom window that make it look like there's other windows up there. Thank you very much.
I think there might
That's
be,
it.
Catherine, or
Say
I'm
that
not
again.
sure, actually. I'm looking at Google and must be seeing the same reflections. It looks like there's a mullion behind the glass.
It looks like there's two windows up there. I didn't catch that when I was taking the photo, and now I'm looking at it. It looks like there's two.
Yeah, you're right. It's just a
There-
It's
reflection.
just a reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for the,
It fooled me too.
yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other, no questions, John.
Okay. Peter, any questions?
Yeah, so is this proposal to modify the transom as well?
The transom's administrative review, Peter, so we'll stick to the door.
Are there, on the inside of the door, are there steps up similar to what for the existing original buildings on that street have?
I have not
Where-
actually been in this building.
Okay, because these houses originally had a recessed entry. And there was no door where the existing door is. So this is typical of, I guess it's the building that was destroyed in the fire.
Peter, just for context, Rachel and I were able to actually find a photo courtesy of South End Historical Society from the 1970s. And here is 12 Bradford Street, I believe. And so there you're able to see the recessed entryway.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Yeah, this particular building it was erected in 1984 on the site of a burned out building.
And then Angela, sorry to interrupt. Is Matt Kelly also a representative or the homeowner?
He is the homeowner.
Okay, great. I'm going to unmute him as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I understood that this is a replacement building.
And Matt,
may-
did you have, Matt, can you give
maybe-
us your full name before you say anything if you want to speak?
Sure. Matthew Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Just I was trying to get off of mute here. Yes, there's about 3 or 4 stairs inside the door. So I think it meets exactly, Peter, what you were saying, the expectation that would be for buildings in this area. And just to the previous comment, there does look like there's a reflection through the window. There's 2 unit doors, and inside above unit 2, there is a transom window there as well. So you're not wrong for seeing a little bit of a glimmer through the transom on the exterior.
Thank you. That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. John, questions?
So am I understanding, having heard that a fiberglass door is not allowed by the regulations, are you changing the application? Or are you keeping the application with this proposed door?
We are going to work with the homeowner to find a solution within our catalog of products that will meet your guidelines and
Okay,
present
okay.
that to him, and then we will reapply. Actually, I might ask for Rachel Erickson's advice on that, if we should reapply with a whole new application or amend this one, but that's a separate conversation.
Okay.
But
That's
yes,
my only question.
we will present to the homeowner a door that is within your guidelines. Now that we are understanding that this door is not within those guidelines.
Great. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
So as of the homeowner here, so the oak skin on the door isn't sufficient, even though the core may be fiberglass. Just, looking around the street in the neighborhood, I think there are some inconsistencies, and just looking at the state of our current door, we have water and snow come in through rain and snow time. So it's just, it's in dire need of replacement here. If we could just get maybe some clarity on the, it is the wood oak skin on the door that's being presented here.
Yes, that's understood. And it still doesn't meet the guidelines. It has to be a solid wood door. We have a district full of solid wood doors here. So, let's see. I think we're done. John, were you done with questions?
Yes.
Okay. So I think it's time for commissioner comments, because, well, actually, I have a question. How many buildings on Bradford Street on this row of similar design have their doors flush with the brick wall, no longer have their recessed entries? Obviously, the one to the right of this has a flush door.
Yeah.
Are
To
there
answer-
others on the street?
Yes.
Yeah, was
Sorry.
that Matt speaking?
Yes, this is Matt. To answer your question, it's just a one block street, and I would say the majority of homes have been built out, so it's not recessed anymore. It would be the vast minority that have the original recess entry.
And John, we have allowed a door on this street in the flush front.
Okay.
There was a lot of debate about it, but we did allow it.
Mm-hmm. And if we have allowed it, is the configuration of a single door with a single narrow side light to the side the preferred arrangement of door and components?
Well, that's what number 12 is.
I don't think the panel layout is consistent with the historic model, however.
As proposed or as existing?
As it both, because they're proposing that same 6-panel door. So I would suggest and this was part of discussion we had before too. That's a door which is sometimes called a Christian door. It's typically from a different period. It's become sort of the standard residential door in houses all over the country. But if you look up and down the street, there's most doors have a proportion where the meeting rail is lower. And I think we have required that before. There's one house that has a wood door with a similar panel, but it's a much chunkier door. And I don't know if it was allowed. So I would suggest that the commission should require a more even though this house was built in 1980s, that it require configuration that's more akin to the historic model. And I know you didn't want me for comments, but that's my comment.
Well, if
you were first in line for comments, John. Go ahead, Catherine.
Sorry, John. If 12 was approved by the commission, it's
Was it?
exactly, if it were, then it's exactly the same as what's there now at 10.
Well, if it were, do we know that?
That's what I'm saying, if it were.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was.
I think
The one I
10
remember was on the other side of the street.
Yeah,
Where we had
I
the
think
long debate about whether the door
Hey,
should.
Matt, keep your hand raised if you have a question. If you don't have a question or a comment, can you lower your hand? And that way we'll know when you want to speak. You can raise it again. But I'd rather you not interrupt.
I apologize for that. We'd been through the commission review before, and I'm just thinking back maybe a couple of years ago, we were having other windows replaced in the rear of the home. And the commission at that point said they had reviewed and they remembered personally reviewing 10 Bradford Street back in the mid-80s, which is a applause to you all if that is really the case. But I just wanted to share some of the history here.
None of us are over 40, so.
Me neither.
So Matt, wait, what is the address of this home? I've forgotten already.
10 Bradford.
It's 10. And you're saying that this was reviewed in the 80s by the commission?
Yes, that was our understanding. I didn't mean to overtalk anybody. I just wanted to make sure it was heard. Yeah.
Right. All right. So John, would, in addition to the cross rail that has the mail slot in it needing to be lower, would you say that it would also need to be a 4-panel door instead of a 6-panel door?
I think typically they are. I mean, I wouldn't, I think there are people who know more about historic detail on the commission than I do. But that's what I believe we have required in other places, and that's what I think it would be appropriate here. I can be, if somebody has more information, I'm open to being corrected.
Mm.
But looking up and down the street, I'm just looking on Google, there's only one other that has a 6-panel door of this configuration.
Right. So I would, I'll ask, Catherine, do you have any further comments? Because it sounded like you started to comment, but I don't think you may have had the floor entirely. So go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's just that it's right next to 12 and 12 has that configuration. They're exactly the same. I don't know which one John Freeman was mentioning, that when he said only one other one on the street has that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't
door.
counting 12. There's one further down on this side.
But these two they're right adjacent to each other. They look almost like,
Well, unless 12 was
Yes.
actually approved by the commission, unless we have documentation that it was, I don't know that we can use it as a model.
well, I think it's
Um,
important to make sure that whether or not it was.
Okay. Can staff help us out there?
So I just
Rachel?
looked really quickly in NAC, and the only thing I see for 12 is window approval, which means if it was approved, it was before 2020. So I have to do more research for
Yeah.
12. So I don't know if I will be able to get you an answer during the hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's
Okay.
understandable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any further comment, Catherine?
No, thank you, John.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, we probably will anyway, but I think we need to continue this. I'd like to ask the staff to research if in fact this building reconstruction was approved by the commission. It was in the early days of the commission. So I don't know if any records exist or not. I think if it was, in fact, there's maybe some more flexibility in what the applicant is requesting in terms of door style, not material, than if there wasn't. My other comment was, I think regardless of the condition at number 12, I think the side light needs to have more glazing in it. So the glazing should be lengthened.
Similar
Well,
to
I
the
think,
door, I agree.
right, similar to the door. If the door rail with the mail slot were lowered, the panel to the side light would also be lowered, and the glazing would therefore get elongated. And I would think that the panels above that crossbar in the door, above that rail in the door, would have to be a single panel instead of 2 panels to match the elongated window in the side light. So it would be a 4-panel door instead of a 6-panel door. I think John was right when he first said, the 6-panel, Christian door belongs to a different period and not to the period of significance of the district or this building. And we know the building is a reconstruction 1980s, but it's emulating the period of significance of the district. And that's my comment.
John, can I jump in again? I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking again at the photo I took, and Peter's exactly right. I mean, I was incorrect when I said it's exactly the same as 12, because 12 has that elongated side light there.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And it's painted white. I mean, I know we can't control what people paint if it's wood, but we certainly make recommendations, and if that had been approved, number 12, we would never have recommended that it be white, which is just
Correct.
bad.
Correct. We would have recommended a dark color.
So, yeah, maybe I'm changing my tune here.
Okay. Well, Peter, you had a recommendation for how we might move going forward. So would you be, I'd be willing to entertain a motion from you.
I move that we continue this application. And we request the staff to research if in fact this building reconstruction was approved by the commission in the 1980s.
Well, the
Yes.
building and inclusive of the door and its side light.
Yeah,
Right, Peter?
yeah, I'm assuming
Because we don't know if that was replaced since the 1980s,
we do not know that.
right?
So I'll second that.
Okay, great. So just so Rachel and Jackie are aware, so that was my question to Peter was an amendment to his motion. And Peter, did you accept that amendment?
I accept it.
Okay, and Catherine, you seconded that with the amendment?
Yes, yes, I did.
Okay, great. Thanks. So we have a motion. It's been seconded, so we'll ask for public comment now. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. And Rachel or Jackie, am I asking you now? Is Sarah no longer on the call?
That is correct.
Okay, so yeah.
Going to be managing public comment this evening.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any raised hands, but we did receive one written public comment that is outside of the scope of the work of this application, but I will still share it here. During the 2025-2026 renovation for the back of the building, the gutter downspout to the backyard was disconnected and left with no opportunity to connect to a below grade perforated line in the garden or to the municipal storm system. How does the building intend to connect this gutter? And as mentioned, this is outside of the scope of work of this application, but just wanted to share this with the commission as it was a public comment.
Okay.
Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. So after receiving public comment, we'll now go to a vote. And Catherine,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Thank you very much, Angela and Matt. And you can work with staff moving forward if you want to come back to us. So we'll now go to the next application, which is 21 Greenwich Park. And the work is to replace 5 non-original curved sash windows with straight sash windows. There are other items under administrative review, and the applicant needn't address those as part of this presentation.
Great. And while the applicant is raising their hand pertaining to this application or scope of work, staff recommends denial without prejudice regarding the replacement of the non-original curved sash windows with straight sash windows per the standards and criteria, nor will aluminum replacement sash be allowed in adjacent window openings where curved sash has been retained.
I'm sorry, Jackie, I missed the beginning of what you said, which I thought was crucial. So could you repeat that, please?
Of course, staff recommends denial without prejudice regarding the replacement of non-original curved sash windows with straight sash windows. Per the standards and criteria, nor will aluminum replacement sash be allowed in adjacent window openings where curved sash has been retained.
Okay, great.
And then I see that someone has raised their hand. So if you can, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
And please give us your full name.
Hi, it's Walter Cleaver, 21 Greenwich Park.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to just, oh, okay.
Yeah, we have your presentation. So
Okay.
again, this is specifically focusing on the curved sash windows. And this is the entire presentation in which we were given. So just let me know which slides to skip and I'll be doing that.
Okay. Well, I guess our interest is actually replacing 12 windows, 5 of the curved sash. It has I think a slightly, a gentle curve to it, but we've had water problems with some of the curved windows. And my understanding is that most of the nearby and adjacent properties who have replaced their windows have done it with the Marvin Ultimate window, flat sash, including the people that are in my own building. There's 2 of us. We have the upper floors, and our neighbors are downstairs. And they had replaced their windows with a flat sash about 3 years ago, I guess. And so have people on either side. So we were hoping, it seems like that's sort of become the standard. And I think Marvin Windows is one of the ones that the commission approves in terms of installing them. And it definitely would be an upgrade to what we have now. We've been here 18 years, and the windows have been in bad shape, and we just put them off. I'm sure, I guess, I'm retired. My wife is looking for work. I'm not sure if financial aspects are a consideration or not. But if we were to do the curb sash windows, it would be an additional $25,000, and we probably wouldn't do that. So anyway, we're hoping that, given the nature of our own street and what people have done there, that these windows would comply with the commission's wishes, essentially.
Chinese restaurant. Oh, no, thanks.
Okay.
And
So
yeah,
all
I'm
the-
just going through the presentation, just so you can also let the commission know what window specific.
Yeah, that's a front-facing window, and that we would look to replace that with the Marvin Ultimate flat sash. All the front-facing windows would be with the top line Marvin window, as well as a couple of the windows in the back on the alley that are on our main level. We'd keep all that consistent. The other windows in the back would be replaced with Marvin. I think it's called, there's a different name of the brand. But all the front-facing windows would look good. And they certainly would look better than they are now. And the idea is to have a consistency in the building, because our neighbors below have the Marvin flat, and then we have different windows, and we're looking to have basically the same look throughout the one brownstone, if we can.
Okay. And we're talking about 5 windows. Why are we talking about 5 when there are likely 6 in the bow front? We're just talking about the windows in the bow front.
Actually, in the front, there's only 4 of the bow windows. There's 2 flat windows. I don't know how we got 5, honestly. Yeah, you're right. You're correct on that. There's 4 in the front.
So can you point to them? Can somebody point to them so we know which windows we're talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about these 2, these 4, and then there's 4 curved in the back on the alley. But these are the front-facing ones, and these are the 2 flat-facing.
Which 2?
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you say these, can you just direct Jackie, who's okay above the door?
Yeah, above the door.
Right.
Exactly.
So you're talking about the top 2 floors.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
and these
and
are our neighbors' windows. I don't know if you can tell if they're flat, but they are. And then we would like to make that consistent with theirs.
your neighbors are on the parlor floor?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, that's all I needed to know.
okay.
So, Catherine, any questions?
Well, gosh, I can't tell that the existing ones on those top two floors are even curved. They all look the same to me.
They are, if you look, especially look at the interior photographs.
Well, that was evident, but when you look from the outside,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're slightly curved, and I think it's pretty imperceptible from the street, actually.
Thank you,
Well,
because I'm not percepting it.
No,
it's subtle and nuances matter.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put that out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
The light hits the right and left pane in the upper and lower sash differently when the sashes are curved because the panes are not facing the same direction exactly. And in this photograph, that's not evident, but in life, when you are moving along the sidewalk, that is perceptible.
Mhm.
And the curve can actually be perceived when you're there. In the photograph, it is subtle.
Right.
I
But these, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I guess my question is about the approval of the neighbors that Walter indicated had changed from curved to flat.
It's quite possible their windows were already replaced with flat sash. And we will allow flat sash windows, non-original, to be replaced with flat sash windows.
Hmm,
So, if you go back and look at that thread, that's probably what happened.
I see. Okay, thank you.
But if these were replaced by someone else with curved sash, the curved sash needs to be retained.
Both of, if I can say, both of our neighbors below and ourselves above moved in just about a month within each other, and it was being lived in by one couple, elderly couple. So I imagine that the windows down below are pretty much the same as ours. And I know that the people downstairs just replaced with the Marvin flat windows, maybe about 3 years ago, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think,
Okay.
yeah. So, and then I think I don't know if you can tell, but our neighbors on the other side, there's a couple further down, also replaced theirs with, I don't know if they were Marvin, I think it's Marvin or Pella, but with a flat sash too. So in terms of the street itself, I can't speak for the whole South End, but in terms of our street, it's been pretty much the trend of putting in the flat sash window.
Walter, you're probably going to be surprised to hear this, but the commission doesn't concern itself with consistency of the street or even a building.
Okay, fair.
So we just have to retain important, what's the word I'm looking for, character defining features.
Okay.
And eventually, as more applications come back to us, more character defining features will be returned. And then there'll be greater consistency. But in the meantime, there won't be.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, and moving forward, if you have anything further to say, raise your hand. But if you don't, please lower your hand so we know you don't have something to say. And then when we see the raised hand, we'll know that you want to speak again.
Okay.
And we'll call on you. We are in questions or comments. I've even lost track now. We've had so much discussion. But Catherine, you've had something to say, so I'll go to Peter. Peter?
Thank you, John.
Peter, you've frozen. Or I've frozen, one or the other.
It's Peter.
Okay. Peter, we'll come back to you. John Freeman,
Um,
what do you have to say?
as far as I remember, I don't remember this commission ever approving the replacement of curved sash windows. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen during COVID or it didn't happen some other time, or as you say, previous to the commission. And I think replacement of windows was one of the things that was why the people who began the commission started it. While we do approve the Marvin Ultimate because it meets our dimensional requirements, I don't think the Marvin Ultimate is approved for replacing a curved sash window. Lastly, also to take out a window that is an original window, we have a procedure that requires review of the window and a statement from a professional that says that the window is not able to be restored.
So John, just for
We
the,
still
just
do
so you
that,
know,
think?
just so you know, these are non-original curved sash.
Oh, they're non-original. I missed that part. I'm sorry.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Interesting. Okay, so I'll retract that last part.
Could I add a comment, John?
Yeah, I think
hang
that's up
on,
to the
Walt.
commissioner. Yeah.
I just want to find out if John's finished.
I think I'm finished.
Okay. Walt, go ahead.
No, I think you brought up the probably what I was going to say, that none of the windows are historic or non-original. They're all non-original. And I guess looking at our building, I guess I'm feeling that if we replace them with the black, clad frame, and it certainly would look better than it does now. And because again, you're replacing non-original windows. So anyway, that's the only other comment I have. Thank you.
Okay. Peter, had you commented?
I have not. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
You froze
know
for a
what
moment
happened
earlier,
before.
so we had to go to John.
Yeah, you had to thaw out.
Yep.
Two-pronged question. Have you done a field visit to look at these windows? And to the applicant, how do you know that they are not original?
Okay, let me just. The only way I know they're not original is that our neighbors downstairs, he is a contractor, and I'm just taking his word. I think you can tell they're flat if you look at them, but he was the one that recommended JB Sash, the ones that would install the Marvin windows, and so he mentioned that he had replaced the non-original curved windows with the Marvin windows.
Are these rope and pulley, or are they just sliders?
I'm sorry?
Do these windows operate by rope and pulley, or are they just sliders?
Sliders.
Okay. So, all right. So, staff, can you answer Peter's question?
Yeah.
So, oh, no, you can go ahead if you want. Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, when we reviewed the submitted images, which are really clear, we knew and saw by the dimensions and the images that these were curved sash windows, so we did not go out to take further look into them.
I think the question is original.
If they're original,
right.
I mean, Rachel, if you want to jump into, but we didn't get an indication that these were original curved sash.
We did not. The applicant is working with Ed at JB Sash. We've worked with Ed for a long time, and he is really great with letting us know if something's original or not. There's no rope and pulley system. There are sliders, as they mentioned. We did not see a reason to come out and take a further look at them. But if the commission wants us to, we could always continue the application and staff could go out. We could go from there.
Okay.
So Rachel, are your staff comments to approve?
No, our staff comments, so they have some straight sash windows at the front. Those are administrative review because we can approve them. The curved sash windows, we recommend denying them without prejudice. Because as it says in the standards and criteria, nor will aluminum replacement sash be allowed in adjacent window openings where curved sash has been retained. And these windows have retained a curved sash. So it doesn't matter if they're original or not, they still have the curve. So our standards and criteria state that if the curve exists, it should be maintained.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not tied to it being aluminum? It's
So it literally said it's in the section where it
Yeah.
talks about replacement windows and it talks about aluminum replacement windows and that they're allowed. But it states that again, nor will aluminum replacement sash be allowed in adjacent window openings where curved sash has been retained.
So your interpretation, it's not, I think, our time to try to reinterpret our guidelines tonight. Your staff interpretation is that we need to retain the curved sash windows because of the guidelines.
That is our interpretation, but we're happy to go out. You know, if the commission has other thoughts, that was just staff's analysis of the project.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think we've all commented, and I don't have anything further to say other than it seems pretty clear that the staff recommendation is the correct way to go here. So I am willing to entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make a motion. This is John. I'll make a motion to deny this without prejudice, and follow the staff recommendations because I think it's based on their interpretations. I do think, though, that one of the issues, and this is a comment directed towards the commission, that the cost of curved sash windows is partially because of a requirement that they be out of wood. And as we've said before, and we do have a standing window committee that should be exploring new materials that would make this a much easier decision. So I'd just like to remind everybody that we should be pushing that forward because there's lots of new materials out there.
Right. And separate from curved sash, however, the guidelines say that wood windows shall be replaced with wood windows regardless of whether they're original or non-original, if they are in an original configuration as these are.
Right. I think we need to look at all of those in our guidelines, but for now, we have to follow our guidelines.
Right, right. I agree with you, John, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
So that's a motion. Do I hear a second for that motion?
Could you repeat the motion, please?
I deny this without prejudice. Everything else was just a comment.
Okay, well, second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. And Rachel, do we have anybody raising their hand besides Walt? Or any written comment?
We did not receive any written comment, and I do not see any other raised hands besides Walt.
Okay, so Walt, I see that your hand is raised. Did you have something further to say?
Yeah, just a question. Thank you for your time on this. Is there any other recourse I have, or what is next step? Like, um, is the proposal that Ed from JB Sash helped put together for us dead, or do we have? Does this require that we put in the curved sash windows, or is it still an open question if people come out and look at the building? I mean, if we were to go ahead with, definitely the building would look a lot better than it does right now. But I'm not sure what next steps might be.
Well, you would work with staff
Okay.
outside of this. So Rachel, is there anything you want to say now, or do you just want to defer to conversations later that the applicant can have with you about the direction they can take?
Sure, yeah, we can connect Walt with Ed after the hearing. And you did mention that you perhaps might have a financial hardship. So if you would like some more information on that path, we can connect with you after the hearing on that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check with Ed too. Okay, that'd be great. All right. Well, all right. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thanks.
We'll go to the next item on the agenda, which.
Did we vote?
Oh, we haven't voted.
Oh, we haven't voted. Oh, thanks, John. John,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. Thank you, John. So we'll go to the next item on the agenda. Oh, first, can we check back with, what was it? 52
56
something,
Rutland.
56 Rutland.
Yeah, so Rachel and I reached out. Hopefully a project representative has made it.
I don't have any emails from anyone. But if there's anyone here representing the project, you could just raise your hand.
Well, there's only two possibilities, Molly McCarthy or whoever that phone is.
Is this for 56 Rutland Square?
Hmm.
Oh, Molly's raising her hand.
Hi, Molly.
Hi, sorry about that. I am not attached to this project. I'm extremely late on behalf of 13 Worcester Square. So I wanted to check and see if you've already gotten to that one.
Is that an administrative review item?
Oh, I could be wrong. It was like a approval for design change, just a color change.
Oh, Molly, I do believe that 13 Worcester Square is actually an administrative review, so you are not required to attend, and nor do we take public comment for those applications. So
apologies.
No worries. Thank you so much.
I see it on admin.
Yeah, it's on admin. So again, there's no requirement to attend.
Thanks for coming though.
Yeah. Okay, so
yep, looks like we don't have a project representative. So going once, going twice, going 3 times.
So
Looks like
to an American.
okay.
All right.
So hopefully we'll see them at the next one.
Yes. I am getting over. My computer's very slow today. Apologies. Let's see. We're almost there. Great.
Okay. So now we are going to approve administrative review. And I had a question, and I don't have, wait a minute. I'm wondering if I could find the agenda on my screen. I don't know that I can, but there was one on administrative review I had a question on where there was a replacement of a lot of windows. It was a big paragraph. Maybe it was 85 Waltham. And it didn't mention whether the replacements, what the configuration of the replacements were. It said that the existing were one 1/1 white vinyl. This is 85 Waltham. So on all the other window replacements, you say what the configuration of the replacements will be, but you don't say that here. So I was wondering if you could just tell us what they are.
Yep, they are 2/2 windows, Pella traditional replacement double hung in black.
Okay, great.
Did
Thank
you
you.
say traditional replacement?
It says Pella Reserve traditional replacement double hung.
Make sure those aren't the replacement windows that cut down the glazed,
The sight lines.
the sight lines.
Okay.
I think they might be.
Ooh,
Pella makes a new construction window, as does Marvin.
and just so we know the terminology, John, when you say new construction window, does that mean it will cut down the sight lines?
Means it won't.
Oh, it means it won't.
Yeah, so what a lot of what they call replacement, or they use different terminology, do is they don't take out the jambs. And so the windows actually get smaller.
Right.
Put a new jamb, or sometimes just new sashes. So we've always said the thing that's supposed to be maintained is the size of the glazed opening, the glazed
Right.
light.
Right. And that can be maintained with new construction. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
they call them new construction windows. You just take out the whole window and put in a new window, including the jambs.
Jam and all. Okay. Great. Thank you. So what do we do about it? Do we exclude 85?
I would
Waltham?
make a motion that to approve it conditionally on and remand it to staff, so that staff can decide what to do without making him wait another month.
Okay.
And I'll
So can we turn that into a motion?
I'll
for
make
ju-
that the motion and extend that to all the rest of the items.
Second.
Okay.
Before we do,
Yep. Peter?
if a question there on the first, I think it was second administrative review item, the first one of 10 Bradford about the transom. Should we hold off on approving that until we approve the door? Or commission comfortable moving forward?
That's a good question. That's a question really for staff because we don't know what the application says for the replacement of the transom window.
I mean, the window is a separate piece from the door. What they've proposed matches what's existing. If you guys think there's a world where the door configuration should be recessed and not flush with the front of the building, then maybe you would want to withdraw it. However, if you're likely anticipating a door that is flush with the building, that transom opening has been there since that particular house was built in the 1980s. So it doesn't make sense for it to change now. So I would approve it.
My concern is just to be able to confirm that the building reconstruction was approved by the commission.
Okay. I mean, it's your call as commissioners if you would like to withdraw it or not.
Forgive me, which address are we talking about?
And Bradford, Catherine, the second down from the top,
Oh.
where we were continuing the door.
Yeah. Replacement of the transom is on administrative. Huh.
Because they were replacing what was there. So I don't know that we would call for recessing the door, since John has mentioned that we've approved flush doors
Oh, God.
in these conditions. So I don't know that it would matter whether we approve the 1980s building or not. It would only matter for the style of the door, not whether there was a door and a transom there.
Yeah, thank you, because it's so controversial, John, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
We've denied putting those flush doors in.
Well, John Freeman said that we have actually approved flush doors in situations where the original buildings had recessed doors.
Well,
Well, I think the reason we approved it is that we couldn't prove to ourselves that they didn't have flush doors. There was somebody made it. My memory is fuzzy, but I remember
it was Shamit Ave, and it was John Neal who said, while the majority of buildings have recessed doors, some buildings of the period originally had flush doors, and we couldn't determine on a particular building whether that building ever had flush doors or never had flush doors. And without documentation, we allowed the flush door to be replaced, I think. I think it was a replacement of an existing flush door. Not putting in a flush door where there was no flush door, which
exactly,
is different. We have denied that.
yes.
Rachel, just jumping in here. So I would
Yep.
say it's unlikely that they're going to, I have a feeling they wouldn't. I would just like to say, so for 10 Bradford Street, the window that they're proposing is an approvable window for the transom. And if you consider that out individually, it makes sense to keep it on admin. If you consider everything together as one piece, which it is one application, it would make sense just to withdraw that from the admin review right now. And they're coming back to us again. Probably, I would assume they'd probably come again next month. So it's not that much longer to wait for that portion of the project if you guys decide to remove it.
Okay. I could go either way. Does somebody feel strongly that it would be more practical to remove it to be safe and consider the door and the transom a unit that should be approved together? Or, I could go the other way, saying it's likely we're going to approve a flush door. It's just the configuration of the door that's in question, which means that the transom could be approved administratively.
I agree with that
Now.
approach.
Any further discussion, Peter?
I didn't want us to get bogged down on this. I wanted to raise the question, that's all.
No, it was a good question, and it was worth asking. I'm glad you asked it. But I think talking it through, if you had a further concern, we would consider it. But if not, we'll just leave it on the administrative review and approve it along with the others. So we have a motion, and it's been seconded. Is there any further item we should discuss? If not, we can go to a vote. If not, we'll go to a vote. So John,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion, so the motion carries. So the last item is staff updates. Do we have any?
None that I could think of right now.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Okay, I have a couple of things I want to announce. The first is, and I wish I announced this last month, but I didn't, the day kept moving around, but I gave a walking tour of the South End last week to a group of architects who requested that I give them a walking tour of the South End. architects from the firm Annam, a firm that I had done some work, a number of projects with over the years. And they knew I knew a lot about the South End and a lot about landmark districts, and the firm Annam does a lot of work with historic buildings. So they, thought it would be helpful to their staff to get a tour, and they knew I had given tours in the past. So John, I gave the tour that you've been a part of in the past of new construction in a landmark district. And I would say the 8 or 9 people who participated on this tour found the tour fascinating and said that they learned a lot. The last building on the tour was an Annam building, which was the EBA building that replaced the church on West Newton Street. If people haven't gone over there to see it, it's completed now, and all that I'll say about it is you can't miss it.
Yeah, that's for darn sure. I was shocked. I walked by it the other day and I wondered, did we actually approve that?
I don't remember approving the color
No.
scheme.
No, never. It was certainly presented much more subtly than that. And I've heard shocked comments from people in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's bright. It's very bright. And I honestly, I remember everything about that review, and I
Yeah.
don't remember a color scheme being talked about that would have shown us materials, actual samples of the materials for the skin. Rachel, how involved was staff with the review of skin materials?
So we were involved in the mock-ups of the skin materials. You're talking about the like terracotta elements?
They're not terracotta.
No.
Well, maybe they are terracotta, but they're yellow and orange.
Yeah,
Yellow and
whatever they
orange.
are, the color stuff.
Which project is this? I thought, I don't know.
This is the
EBA.
Annam building that
Oh.
was for EBA.
Got it. Right.
Yeah.
And it
We
replaced
did
the
go
church
on
that was
site. It's
demolished.
at 85 West Newton Street. We went on
Mhm.
site and we looked at the samples, and we did discuss, like, they had a bunch of different, like, I'm sorry, guys. You're catching me off guard here, John. I can go
Oh,
into
yeah.
my email and pull up my notes on this, but we did go on site and approve, and we did have discussions about a subtler palette. So, I don't understand.
We were involved in a process for sure. And
But I don't-
discuss the color palette.
And we definitely went with the most subtle one of the ones that were presented to us.
Yep.
That's good. And we probably should end the discussion of 85 West
Yeah.
Newton, because we're, not discussing, it's not a hearing item, but I was only meant to announce that I gave a tour, and that I could, continue to give tours upon request, if there's ever an occasion that warrants one. So I just wanted staff to know that too. I've done that during Preservation Month, and I don't remember this past May, the staff asking if anyone had ideas for Preservation Month, or this past, winter leading into May as Preservation Month. But at least 3 times I've given that same walking tour in the South End for Preservation Month. So you could keep it, in the back of your mind that I could give a tour of the South End as I've done in the past. And I use different I always start with the same buildings that are across from one another, but there are so many buildings that one can look at now, new construction, that are worth examining, but you can only do 5 or 6 in a walking tour. So you can't look at all of them. So I change it up each time. Anyway, that was that. And the other is, I just want to announce that as of February or March, but most likely February of next year, I will be stepping down from the commission. And I just wanted you all to know that I've let Liz and Joe know that a couple of months ago, but I don't think I've said anything here, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. And I've made recommendations to the BSLA for replacing my chair on the main commission, and then a replacement would be needed for the district commissions as well. So that's that. And I just wanted to give you a heads up with sufficient notice.
Well, John, let
And
us
it's,
be the first to say, though, that, Rachel and I and everyone in the office are very thankful for your tenure and everything that you've done in the many, many years you've been involved in the commission. So we thank you so much. And yeah,
You'll be missed.
yeah.
yeah. And I'll miss being on the commission, but it's time for me to step down and let other landscape architects have the experience of being on the main commission. And if so, being on the South End Commission, if they from the main commission get assigned to the South End. But and I've loved more than anything being on the South End Landmark District Commission, and the staff has made it a pleasure and easy, as well as my fellow commissioners. And we're family, honestly. We've been together so long. I can't imagine getting together with you, not getting together with you once a month. But I don't want to, I've also retired from practice as of July 1st. And there's going to be a lot of travel in my future, and that could mean missing meetings. And I don't want that I don't want there to be a conflict there of missing meetings or missing travel for South End Landmark District Commission. So as a result, I think I will, the better part of valor will be to simply step down after 30 years.
Wow.
Well, John, this is big news, and it just won't be the same without you.
No.
Well, thanks for saying that, Catherine.
That is
And
certainly true.
Sincerely.
So
Okay, I'm sorry.
that's all I have to say. That's
Well,
it.
thank you for that big news. And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to step back to what we weren't allowed to talk about. And my question in a general sense is this: when can we, as a group, have any kind of discussion of something that we approved and it wasn't constructed the way we wanted it to be? So when are we supposed to talk about these things?
I think the direction now is that if we have a concern or a question that we feel needs to be discussed as a group, that we submit those questions to staff, and that it somehow get placed on the agenda as an agenda item. That people who are involved with the property under discussion could attend and could comment, and other people concerned with the same property could attend and comment, rather than items appearing on the agenda by surprise. So I think that is the direction we've received.
So we couldn't have an executive session since we wouldn't be ruling on anything to just
That's a good
discuss.
question, John. And I feel the same way you do, because we've handled it that way in the past. We've just gone into executive session, but it seems that staff and Rachel and Jackie chime in, please, because it seems like protocols have been evolving over the years, and that staff would prefer we not do that. Is that correct? Staff?
Yeah, that's
Rachel,
correct. And I think
Jackie?
what you said, John, just, the direction of, if you guys had a question, reach out to staff. And I think there we can find a way to handle it. And if, have a forum in some sense, if that's the direction that we feel is best, we'll take that step. But to first start with speaking to staff in a preliminary sense.
So you prefer not any executive session? Is that what I just
Yeah,
heard?
I mean, so I guess it just like write us a note, let us know what your concerns are, and we'll figure out the most appropriate way to move forward with that discussion,
Yeah,
whether it's
so-
at a public hearing with public or not.
So following that, what's our recourse? Is it just for us to declare a violation or something?
I think
think
that we should like kind of not talk too much more about it,
But this
just
is
because
all
we,
this is general, Rachel. It's important to have some kind of protocol. I'm
In a
not
general sense, Catherine, I
Yes.
think that if you feel like something is built that has not been approved or deviates from
submit
the
a
approval.
violation,
Yep.
Okay.
and then staff can do the research to
Mhm.
either ratify the violation or not, and we can go
Yeah.
from there.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Great. Okay, terrific. And it's great to see you all. And what date is the September hearing? It's
September
September
1st.
Yep, first day of
September
the month.
3rd. Okay,
First day.
3rd. Okay, because I'm traveling in September, but it's not until the 4th. So I'll be there on the
Great.
3rd. Okay, great.
No, it's September 1st.
September 1st. That's what I
Yeah,
thought. Yeah,
September
September 1st.
Oh, okay. I thought somebody was
Yeah.
saying the 3rd.
Yeah, I did. I misspoke. It's the 1st.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'll be there. All right. So anyone want to move to adjourn?
So
I move
moved.
to adjourn.
Okay, and it's been
Me too.
seconded. We'll take a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And see you all next month, if not before.
Sounds
Thanks,
Okay.
good.
everyone.
Thanks,
Enjoy the rest of your
everybody.
summer.
Thank you.